This week features all of the material and all of the connections that you will need to materials for week 1. Okay, week 1 is the shorter week, and so there's a shorter amount of material, and we will definitely build. Week 2 will be more. Week 3 is a challenging week. So I will say that to you right now. Week 3 has your first test number 1. And so anyway, we'll be building these first 3 weeks a bit. So let me tell you a little bit about the organization of this particular page that you're on right now. And while you're listening, if you want to scroll up and down and look at this different stuff, that might be a good idea. First of all, at the top you'll see, I believe I titled it History or Introduction to Psychology, and it has page numbers, and I think it's about pages 1 through 16. So this is your assigned reading in the textbook. So definitely have your textbook with you at all times so that you can highlight, annotate, take notes, and so on. And then you'll see there's a video. Videos are typically, I take them from YouTube and put them on here, and they're usually between 3 and 15 minutes long. 15 would be a long one. Typically they're shorter than that. And they touch on some important topic in the material. So this one is going to touch on functionalism versus structuralism, and these are 2 concepts in psychology, in the history of psychology that your textbook goes into, that the PowerPoints go into, that I talk about more, and you'll start to get some ideas about them. But this quick video will introduce you to this important concept in this chapter. Okay, so I suggest you always watch that video right off, and you have your textbook with you. You're at your study station, wherever that may be, and you have your materials opened up. Now you'll see below the video it says Overview and Lecture. So the first thing there that I put every week is something called Learning Objectives. And the Learning Objectives, I've written next to them, Print Me. So if you can, I would highly recommend that you print those. Now here's a tip. When I create the tests for this course, I use these key objectives, learning objectives, and I pull from that and I look for questions that reflect back on the learning objectives. So if you're familiar with these learning objectives, as you're going through the reading and you're doing some highlighting and you're paying attention as you're cross-referencing, you are actually preparing yourself for the test. We're doing test preparation from the get-go here. Okay, so I would print out those learning objectives. The next thing that I have typically are some PowerPoints. The PowerPoints that go along with the material. These are the same PowerPoints that I use in class. And then sometimes, and I have it here in this week 1, I will put in some lecture along with the PowerPoints. And it's separate from the PowerPoint series itself. So you can look at the PowerPoint series that goes along for this week. And then below that, you'll see, sometimes you will see this screencast that highlights some of the PowerPoints. So I'll get in there and I'll choose a few PowerPoints that I want to give you a little more information on, and that's the lecture. And I would say 1 out of every 3 weeks, thereabouts, we'll have this sort of screencast lecture piece. If it's covered in a different way in that week, for example, if there's an online game instead, then I probably won't have the screencast lecture. But occasionally you'll see them. The next major component that you'll see is called Complete These Practice Materials. The practice materials that I've chosen for you, again, focus on the materials that are key in the chapter. So I've put up a lot of the publishers' interactive pieces, and I want you to get into these quickly, to use them for practice. I put several quizzes in there, and the research shows that the more you're quizzing yourself on materials, the better you do on testing. So, and the better retention you have of the material, so that better learning. So this is what I've put in the practice materials. These quizzes you can take as many times as you want, so if you want to go to that quiz right away and see how you're doing, that's great. And then if you want to take it again after you've done more reading and such, you can quiz yourself again. The final piece in each week is what I call graded, the graded section. So it has graded discussions, any tests, the online labs are all in that section at the bottom there. So discussions are key. Get into the discussions Sunday, Monday at the latest. Post your first discussion, and I will attach a rubric. You get familiar with that. That's how I grade the discussions. Okay, so today, or this week, you have one graded piece. And it is a graded discussion. It's nature versus nurture, and you must participate in this discussion for some key reasons. And one is that you want to be showing as attending for this class. And if you are participating in this first discussion, you will show as being in attendance for this Psych 101 class. I have to drop students for non-attendance if they aren't participating in this first discussion. So make sure you get into it. If you have questions about how to get into a discussion, let me know. But in brief, you just click on the actual title of the discussion itself, and it will bring you to the discussion page. So the first one is about nature versus nurture. This is probably not a topic that's brand new to you, but I will tell you it's featured on page 3 of your textbook. About halfway down, the nature versus nurture issue is brought up. So nature is what we're talking about when we're thinking of our inborn nature, our inborn characteristics as an individual, our genetic makeup, and so on. So what I'm asking in this discussion, and it'll be written out more completely when you go to visit it, is what is more significant in your opinion, because we're going to have a discussion about it. Would it be the nature side, or would it be what's called the nurture side? So nurture includes all of the environmental influences around you. We're talking about parents, we're talking about your cultural upbringing, and so on. So on page 3, it discusses a little bit more about nature versus nurture. You go to the discussion, you want to get into it Sunday or Monday. And in this case, you want to do that in the early part of the week, since this is a short week. And then we'll have a good discussion about it. So basically, that's the outline that you will see every week. You'll see a little video at the top, the assigned reading. You'll see overview and lecture section. You'll see a practice material section. And then you'll see a graded section. Okay, so go ahead and get into it. Click around here. Get very familiar with things at the beginning of each week, and I think that will help you to do the best this semester.